Hello and welcome back to another episode. Now, when it comes to Christmas and preparations for Christmas, I'm normally quite strict. Decorations, Christmas jumpers, these sort of things, they don't begin until Advent, until the 1st of December. Then I go hell for leather. It's fly your Christmassy freak flag. But really, I like to keep November as separate. I like to sort of eke out that Halloween feeling and enjoy the darker nights before we really get into the Christmas spirit of things. But last night we engaged in pre-December revelry, and it was fantastic. It was absolutely brilliant, and I simply had to talk to you about it today. Last night we went to a place called the Sage in Gateshead. It's kind of like an all-purpose music venue. Actually, it looks like as my wife says, an undulating slug crawling along the bank of the Tyne. And actually, the music halls inside, interesting fact, are suspended more or less from the ceiling of the structure, so as not to have the acoustics inside affected by vibrations from the earth. It's such a fantastic venue to have on our doorstep, and. Last night we went there to see, a concert of sorts, but specifically Home Alone with the soundtrack played live by an orchestra. And it was magnificent. It was absolutely fantastic. It wasn't too expensive either. It was only about £15 a ticket, which booked in advance. We had to book it like a year in advance. It's a very popular event. But booked in advance, you don't even notice it. You don't even think about the cost. We just turned up last night and had the most excellent time. Starting with the 20th Century Fox logo, the orchestra plays the music crisply and to a T. And what I noticed actually was that the whole thing was being led by the film was tied into, I think, a Mac or a laptop or something in front of the composer, and the composer had a special version of the film that had a representation of the bars of music as they were scrolling by. So he was always perfectly on time with the events in the movie, and that was one of the things I was concerned about, was whether or not they would be just a little bit off here or there in terms of the emotional beats, or especially when the violence begins and poor Harry and Marv get torn up in the house in all of Kevin's traps. But no, it was always spot on because of that wonderful technology. And basically what they've done is they've taken the movie, 20th Century Fox presumably had licensed this, taken away the soundtrack, and just had the audio, the voices of the actors, and also the sort of the pop music, so Rock Around the Christmas Tree, Jingle Bell Rock, this kind of thing. That was still in the movie, and the orchestra would just sit quietly and watch the movie. But for the rest of it, it was this amazing experience of hearing this crisp and this live version of the soundtrack while watching a very, very, very nostalgic film. Now, I think I might have touched on my love of Home Alone in the past, but really, it doesn't really have to be stated, does it? Home Alone is amazing. I grew up with Home Alone. I think we all did, didn't we? And Home Alone 1 and Home Alone 2, as a total sort of expression of awesomeness, works quite well. Home Alone 2 on its own is not as good as Home Alone 1, but Home Alone 2 and Home Alone 1 are brilliant because they sort of build on the gags. So actually, having watched Home Alone last night, I really wanted to come home and watch Home Alone 2, but it was far too late when we got home. Because my favourite gag in the whole series, when you consider all the pain that the criminals, the wet bandits or the sticky bandits have gone through, is the gag in the second movie where Kevin's chucking bricks down at Marv, and Marv's just reduced to a gibbering wreck on the floor. It's just brilliant. But actually, I was also really impressed last night with the fact that the orchestra, even though they would stop and they would sort of watch the screen, they never missed their cue. Obviously, they're professionals. I guess they've been doing dress rehearsals of this so that they can watch the movie but not get too engrossed in it. But I was very impressed because if I was playing in that orchestra, I would just be loving the movie, and I'd just I'd forget that my music was coming up. So I was very impressed with that. And of course, when everything had been set up and the house was under siege, don't get scared now. It was just a work of magnificence, and it was brilliant seeing a whole venue, because basically we were sat to one side. We were with a friend who's a wheelchair user, so we were sat to one of the sort of the boxes on the ground floor, but to one side, so we could see the whole auditorium as well. And it was brilliant seeing so many people enjoying it, enjoying the slapstick comedy, the expert timing, the pain as well. As a grown up, you just notice that pain so much more than you did when you were a kid. As a kid, it's funny. Oh, they got hit in the face with a paint can. As an adult, you're like, oh my, oh. Or when the foot on the nail as Marv is climbing the tar laden steps in the basement. Oh, painful, painful. And then of course the wonderful irony that, again, as a kid you don't notice how much of an arsehole Kevin's uncle is, but as an adult you're like, you cheap little petty man. And then and there's the salt guy, the neighbour, the wonderful neighbour who's salting the sidewalks and doesn't have bodies in his trash can. It was magical. It was a wonderful way to see such a familiar film. And even though going in, I was wondering, well, how are they going to handle things like dialogue and music? How are they going? Is there going to be like an intermission? And there was actually an intermission, incidentally. Halfway through, there was a break for everyone went out and got drinks. But so going in, I was very concerned about the technical aspects and wondering how it's going to work. But once we were sat down watching the film, it was like I was a kid again, just watching Macaulay Culkin get the better of two dastardly criminals. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Oh, also as well, my favourite of all the gimmicks and gadgets and tricks that he does has to be the icy steps. The icy steps combined with that handle, the handle on the front door that he's heated up. So the initial slip and slide and backflip and landing painfully on the floor is one thing, but then the burning of the hand, where Harry's like, slides back down those steps again. There's a wonderful progression and then regression of progress, which is choreographed beautifully. It's very, I don't know, I wouldn't say Buster Keaton, because that's not quite that grand, but it's in a very good vein of slapstick comedy and physical comedy. So the progress, the lack of progress, the regression of that progress, and then the fact that he goes round the back of the house, opens the door very gently and has his head burned off by a blowtorch. It's art. And of course, Angels with Filthy Souls, brilliant. I'm gonna give you to the count of 10 to get you yellow, ugly, no good keister up my property. 1, 2, 10. Wonderful. And also something else that I always loved as a kid, and I always wanted to know what happened next, was when Kevin's watching The Grinch. He's been eating rubbish food, and he's gone to sleep, and you have the you're a terror, Mr. Grinch. I don't know, like a fiend with evil spots. You're a crusty red tomato, blotched with purple, yellow spots, Mr. Grinch. Something like that. And then it goes, you're a 4-layer toadstool sandwich, or something like that. I always wanted to know what happened next. And it wouldn't be until last year that I actually got a copy of The Grinch. I was able to know what came next in that song. But that little moment, that little Grinch bit, and the da-da-da-da-da-da-da, the tune of it always stuck with me as a kid. Mr. Grinch. And after the whole thing, they played the credits, which were mercifully short because it was a 90s movie, not a modern Marvel movie. They played the credits, and the conductor left. It came back, as is tradition, everyone was clapping, and then they did an encore to a great big screen that said "Happy Holidays, a bit American, but you know, we'll forgive that. And they played "Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas" for an ecstatic climax to the whole event. It was fantastic. So I suppose to just to underscore this, because you can't get this on DVD, I don't think you can experience this unless you go to the venue. But if you ever get a chance to, do it, check it out. And I imagine actually that other movies treated in a similar way will be similarly exciting, because it's the nuances of the music, it's the little things like, so there's something in the score of Home Alone where they use a big bass drum every now and then, like a boom, just to emphasise certain moments that you just don't quite get certainly not on the VHS when I was a kid, or on the DVD. The use of the violins in the more creepy sort of moments, when maybe there's a storm happening at the beginning, when there's something quasi-magical occurring that maybe, that causes the electricity to be cut to the house, so the alarm clocks don't go off, so the family's late to get to the airport, so that Kevin is left home alone. Those musical stings and those musical moments, when it's live in front of you and you can actually also see the movement of the instruments, just brings it home to you. It adds an extra little dimension to the experience, but also crucially doesn't take away from the joy of watching the film, because that's the other thing as well. I was really concerned that I'm going to have to listen to the music and watch the musicians instead of really enjoying this film. So at one point I was also curious as to whether or not they would just have the music and no dialogue, but they don't. It's music, dialogue. They stop playing when the musical, the pop music comes in, or the old classic Jingle Bell Rocks comes in, and the balance is just beautiful. So I would strongly recommend giving it a go. If you have anything like that happen anywhere near you, you won't regret it. It's just brilliant. And as I say, I wonder if like with Batman, with like the original Tim Burton Batman film, or actually, frankly, any of the Tim Burton movies, Beetlejuice would work really well, I think, with an live orchestra and a projection of the movie. Maybe some of the classics. Yeah. Anything. If you get a chance, give it a go. As ever, guys, until next time, do take care. Bye-bye.